We all have reboot fatigue, and 9 times out of 10, reboots fail, if not financially, then critically, most presenting a watered-down or lackluster remake of a previously loved property. Moreover, reboots have become the rule rather than the exception, despite nobody asking for them. From The Witches to the slew of remakes Disney have subjected us to, the last decade has honestly made me question if originality is dead. I'll be the first to complain about the excess of reboots. Despite loving the Moana film, I felt nothing but utmost indifference on hearing it's already receiving a remake. In most cases, I'd rather studios left the classics we grew up with alone. That said, there is one remake I'd like to see, and that's HBO's proposed Harry Potter TV show. Now, I can hear the groans. Weren't the films perfect? Hasn't Harry Potter had its moment? Can we just get over the whole reboot craze? These are all valid concerns, especially when there are a plethora of other stories within the wizarding world we'd all love to see, such as a Marauders television show, or a show following the terrible exploits of a young Tom Riddle. Moreover, the original films were great, though I'd argue they weren't perfect, even if they came close, because almost nothing is perfect. The films are near and dear to my heart. The casting was superb, the story was beautifully adapted, and much of how we picture Hogwarts came from the films themselves. That said, fans have had their nitpicks over the years, in particular those who have loved the books. Every time I return to the novels, which started it all, I'm shocked by how much the films were forced to cut. I marathon the movies once, if not twice, a year, but as a die-hard bookworm, I can't help mourning those characters, places, and moments which were removed from the story. And it is those missing scenes which make me desperate for this reboot. We will always have the original films. No matter how awful or great the reboot turns out to be, I have no plans to stop rewatching my box set until the discs crumble to dust. That said, a reboot could bring to life those portions of the story I so adored from the books. Before we continue, I'm Riley and this is Otherworldly Fiction. On this channel, I rant about fantasy books, discuss characters and lore, share my bookish opinion, and offer the occasional writing advice. If any of that sounds like your cup of butterbeer, hit that subscribe button. Posts are on Fridays. I can't list every moment or character cut from the books in this video, as there are too many to count, and I'd love to explore the subject book by book in future videos. But I can address those moments I personally believe deserve to be revisited or explored. Reason number 1, Tom Riddle's memories. For those who have read the novels, you might remember the memories explored by Harry and Dumbledore in The Half-Blood Prince. While the films only show 2 memories, there are several in the books, from not only Voldemort himself, but those including members of his own family who had to deal with him. From Hokey the aged house elf to Voldemort's own mother Merope, many were affected by Tom. The memories of Riddle reveal why he was drawn to the idea of Horcruxes, why he was an orphan, how he learned he was the heir of Slytherin, and how he acquired each of the objects which would become his Horcruxes. Voldemort was creepy enough in the films, but his history gives him a depth and fear factor beyond this. Even as a child, Tom was disturbed. To this day, no one knows exactly what he did to the orphan children he led into the cave while on a field trip. Voldemort is still a formidable antagonist in the films, but many were disappointed to see his history cut, especially in lieu of repeated outbursts of 1-1. Many even considered Voldemort one of their favorite characters after seeing the memories. I don't think anyone likes Tom Riddle, but it's easier to take interest in a villain with some development beyond "I'm a bloodthirsty murderer." Reason number 2, Barty Crouch Jr.'s backstory. Voldemort wasn't the only series villain to have his story glossed over. In reading The Goblet of Fire, readers learned that one of Voldemort's most loyal Death Eaters, Barty Crouch Jr., has a convoluted history of his own. In the beginning, Barty is even presented as a tragic character, especially when contrasted with his harsh father. Though we later learn he's as cold-blooded as ever, the books indicate that Barty Crouch Sr. may be partially to blame for how his son turned out, given how much of an absent father figure he was. In the books, Barty Jr. was rescued from Azkaban by his mother when she proposed they switch places by disguising themselves as the other. Each drank a polyjuice potion. Mrs. Crouch died in prison, identified as her son, while Barty remained the prisoner of his father. Under house arrest, Barty was guarded by the house elf Winky. Finally breaking loose at the Quidditch World Cup, Barty returned to Voldemort's side, leaving Winky to be sacked by Crouch Sr. before being taken in by Dumbledore. In the films, viewers don't even know how Barty escaped Azkaban, and Crouch Sr. in the films shows little concern over the escape of his son, while in the books, he is shown as growing sickly before finally going missing. Harry and Crumb eventually find a mad Crouch Sr. on the edge of Hogwarts woods, but the fake Moody kills him and hides the evidence before anyone can rescue him. It's an intriguing backstory, and one which fills in plot holes presented by the films. Those wondering why Crouch couldn't be questioned by the Ministry to corroborate Harry's claim of Voldemort's return might not know that a Dementor sucked out his soul before Fudge could hear the tale, a misfortune which would have lasting consequences for Harry in the year to come. Number 3. A deeper exploration of Ginny's character. One of the biggest complaints regarding the films revolves around the presentation of Ginny's character. Throughout the books, she has a pronounced arc. Beginning as a meek and awkward little girl, she blossoms in time to someone both talented and funny. Tough, clever, and rebellious, it's easier in the books to see why Harry likes her. Harry's conflict over his feelings for Ginny versus his loyalty to Ron is also more pronounced, with Harry being given Ron's approval after kissing Ginny directly in front of her brother. In the films, however, Ginny is little more than a bit part. She has her moments in the movies, casting a powerful curse against the Death Eaters in the Department of Mysteries, and telling the rabble to shut it at Quidditch tryouts, but much of her character is otherwise lost. Viewers of the films never get to hear about her bat bogey hex, or how said hex secured her a place in Slughorn's club. They never see how much she suffered from Riddle's diary, or how this enabled her to relate to Harry as no one else could when he experienced his own fears of being possessed by Voldemort. Many fans were especially irritated by the moment in which Ginny knelt to tie Harry's shoe, finding the gesture out of character. In the movies, she gives Harry a slow kiss, while in the books, Harry kisses her in a moment of elation before an audience. Their first kiss is more dramatic in the text, as is their relationship. After spending hours on the grounds together, just sitting and talking, Harry breaks up with Ginny because he knows the dangers inherent to his mission to hunt Horcruxes. A reboot could give book fans the Ginny they always pictured, developing her character and her relationship with Harry season by season. Number 4. A book-accurate Ron. Personally, I don't mind Ron's portrayal in the films. This is only a personal opinion, but I thought Rupert Grint did a fantastic job, and Ron never fails to make me smile. Some have pointed out that the Ron in the films comes across as mean, but it's worth noting that book Ron could be mean too, something observed by none other than Luna Lovegood. All that said, I agree that Ron is more on the fringes of the group than he should be. As many fans have pointed out, one of his finest moments is stolen by Hermione in Prisoner of Azkaban. While in the Shrieking Shack, the movies show Hermione as standing up for Harry against the supposedly notorious Sirius. In the books, however, Ron is the one to stand up for Harry, a feat made more impressive by the fact he does so while standing on a broken leg. The movies often play Ron as an insensitive oaf who eats too much, but in the books, he is shown contributing as much as Hermione does. He also has his own arc as a character, with his journey as a Quidditch player beginning not in his 6th, but in his 5th year, when his mother rewards him with a broomstick for his achievement in becoming a prefect. Yet another win for Ron, completely cut from the movies. Hermione might be the brains, but Ron often thinks outside the box, and his growth as a person is awesome to see in the original series. Weasley is our king, anyone? Number 5. Rita Skeeter's secret. In the films, Rita is played for laughs as an annoying but ultimately harmless nuisance Harry has to deal with. However, in the books, she is anything but harmless. Writing toxic stories about anyone and everyone, she destroys lives, causes unrest, and creates drama. Much of what Harry suffers in his 5th year is started by an article Rita writes, in which she claims he is unstable and potentially dangerous. Rita's victims include not only Harry, but Hermione and Hagrid. In confessing to the world that Hagrid is a half-giant, she drives Hagrid into hiding for a time, before the Golden Trio manages to talk him out of his self-imposed exile. Rita Skeeter literally makes Hagrid cry, and if that wasn't enough, her poison pen leads to Hermione receiving hate mail. On opening one of these hostile letters, Hermione's hands are doused in boobatuber pus, a substance which causes burns if it comes into direct contact with the skin. Worse, Rita's misrepresentations lead to Molly Weasley slighting Hermione for a time. Fed up with not only the abuse she suffered, but the harm done to those she cares about, Hermione makes a point of challenging Rita Skeeter. In her quest to learn how Rita is listening in on so many personal stories, Hermione finally learns the truth, that Rita is an unregistered animagus, taking the form of a beetle to eavesdrop. Capturing Rita and keeping her insect form in a jar, Hermione forbids Rita from writing more vitriol for a year, lest Hermione reveal her secret and subsequent law-breaking to the public. Hermione agrees to release Rita during her 5th year, provided she writes Harry's half of the story regarding Voldemort's return. The story is published in The Quibbler, the magazine run by Luna's father, and, though banned by Umbridge, it changes the opinions several people have about Harry for the better, earning him a reprieve and some renewed support from the public. Altogether, Rita's story offers an engaging subplot, and one which explores the dangers of social media and the damage misinformation can cause to the lives of others. Plus, the end of her arc introduces the Quibbler sooner, making its appearance in the 6th book more notable. Number 6. The History of the Marauders. For those who have read the books, it's easy to forget how much the movies leave out, especially since we fill the gaps in with our own knowledge. In the films, it's not even stated outright that James and Sirius, along with Lupin and Pettigrew, created the Marauders map. Viewers learn that Sirius is an animagus, capable of turning into a dog, but they never learn why. That he did so in order to spend time with Lupin in safety, while his best friend was in his werewolf form. Furthermore, James was an animagus too. His Patronus, a stag, was identical to the animal he became. Come nightfall, the three marauders, Sirius, James, and Peter, explored the grounds in their animal forms, undetected by teachers. Then, when the full moon came, they eased Lupin's misery by keeping him company. After all, werewolves aren't interested in attacking animals. The Whomping Willow and the Shrieking Shack were created specifically for Lupin, so that he might transform in a place students wouldn't stumble on. The third book offers viewers an exciting glimpse into the life of Harry's father, as well as that of his godfather. Even beyond the third book, Harry learns about his parents, including how Sirius almost did become a murderer when he tricked Snape into creeping towards Lupin's hiding spot, only for James to stop Snape at the last second, thereby saving his life. Harry also has to grapple with his feelings on seeing how much of a bully his father could be, leading him to broach the subject with Sirius. Harry and Sirius spend more time together in the books, and his death in the original series is that much more painful. Many fans would like to see a dedicated Marauders TV show, but an exploration of their backstory in the reboot could set the precedent for this series down the road. The actors chosen to appear in memories or flashbacks might even reprise their roles in a Marauders series. Reason number 7. Neville's visit to St. Mungo's. One of the most heart-wrenching moments in the books is when Harry meets Neville at St. Mungo's Hospital, seeing for the first time exactly why Neville lives with his grandmother. Viewers of the films might assume Neville's parents were killed after Bellatrix tortured them, but the truth is worse. They lived, but have no memory of Neville. Instead, they are essentially crazy. Tortured into madness by the repeated use of the Cruciatus Curse, they are little more than invalids. The most Mrs. Longbottom can give her son is a candy wrapper. She has some dim affection for him, but who she used to be has been entirely destroyed. Harry lost his parents, but what Neville had to suffer was potentially worse. He had living parents, but parents who never knew who he was and who would never be able to raise him. Though living, Neville would never get to know them as they really were. Instead, he had to visit the shells of his parents year after year, clinging to even the most useless of objects given to him by his mother. The trip to St. Mungo's includes other interesting moments, including a cameo made by the obliviated Lockhart, and Mr. Weasley's experiments with Muggle medicine. But the moment in which Harry meets Neville's parents is a powerful one, which deserves to be shown. It is in this moment that we come to appreciate what Neville has lost, as well as the lasting scars left by Voldemort's first assault on the wizarding world. Number 8. The Whole of the Goblet of Fire. After watching the 4th film, reading The Goblet of Fire almost feels like following another story. The films covered the pivotal plot points, but several subplots, characters, and twists were scrapped. Though I've already covered Barty Crouch Jr.'s backstory and the trouble caused by Rita Skeeter, I've just scratched the surface. Arguably, the 4th book should have been split into 2 parts, as the 7th book was. From the beginning, the movie had to make cuts. One of the best portions excluded from the films was the actual match held between Ireland and Bulgaria. Before the match even starts, the Golden Trio witness the antics of the Vila and the Leprechauns, magical mascots who become progressively more hostile towards one another as the match progresses. what could be a more exciting opening to the 4th season of the show than an international Quidditch match? And one which shows exactly how awesome Crumb is. Then there's the Triwizard Tournament itself. The first 2 tasks are fairly accurate in the films, but the third is considerably stripped down. Gone are the blast-ended Scroots, the giant spiders, the Boggart, and the Sphinx, to be replaced by a lot of wind. It's understandable that the creators would scrap the creatures, as they would have added considerably to the budget. But CGI has come a long way since, and TV shows have been given increasingly dramatic funds to play with. There is more still which should be included, whether it be Ludo Bagman, the Weasley twins' attempts to raise funds for their joke shop, or Hermione's spew campaign. But suffice it to say that those who have seen only the films are missing a book's worth of content. Number 9. Sirius's Mirror. The creators couldn't have known how important the mirror given to Harry by Sirius would be to the plot, or they might have made a greater point of revealing it to the audience. The mirror shard Harry has in Deathly Hallows is all that remains of a handheld mirror Harry shattered after Sirius's death. The fragment is at the root of a powerful moment of grief, in which Harry, half believing he'd be able to talk to Sirius again, breaks it when he realizes his attempts are futile. Sirius gave the mirror to Harry so that they might communicate despite Umbridge's crackdown. Harry, however, never bothered to open the present, believing Sirius would use it to endanger himself. Unfortunately, had Harry opened the gift sooner, Sirius might have lived. Harry could have talked to him directly, and the whole rush to the Department of Mysteries would have been avoided. The discovery of the mirror rubs salt in the wound when it comes to the loss of Harry's godfather, but it's also vital to the plot. After breaking the mirror, Harry keeps a piece, through which he sees the eye of Aberforth. Due to the connection shared between Harry's mirror and that which Aberforth purchased from Mundungus when the latter ransacked Grimmauld Place, Dobby was able to rescue Harry, and moviegoers know the rest. If for no other reason, the inclusion of the mirror in Order of the Phoenix would make its appearance in Deathly Hallows less confusing for casual viewers. Number 10. Deleted characters. This isn't a specific moment, but the books are rife with characters which never make an appearance in the films, or who do appear but have no lines and are therefore overlooked. There are plenty of minor characters, including students and Aurors who are excluded from the films, but there are also those who are named but never seen. No fans are losing sleep over the exclusion of Zachariah Smith, but Charlie Weasley's absence in the movies feels odd. In the films, it's noted that he studies dragons, and in the 3rd film, he can be glimpsed waving with his family during their visit to Egypt. In the books, though, Charlie meets Harry personally. What's more, he helps to lead the fight during the Battle of Hogwarts, turning the tide in favor of the defenders. In addition to Charlie, there is Bill. Viewers meet Bill in the 7th film, but it's hard to care about him in the same way. It's difficult to enjoy the wedding of a man we barely know. But in the books, Bill is easily one of the most likable characters, besides Charlie. He's a curse breaker for Gringotts, and the word cool is literally used to describe him. He ignores Molly's criticisms, happily growing his hair long, and he wears a fang in his ear. If I had a crush on any minor character growing up, it was Bill Weasley, and he, along with the relationship he develops with Fleur, is worthy of being explored. Other characters who appear, but who should be fleshed out further, include Lupin, Tonks, and Dumbledore. Viewers miss out on Dumbledore's history. which is every bit as riveting as Voldemort's, as well as the progression of Tonk's relationship with Lupin, who initially refuses her affections because of how little he feels he can offer her as an older man and a werewolf. Finally, fans miss out on seeing a grown-up Teddy Lupin at the train station 19 years later, which is significant given Lupin named Harry as Teddy's godfather. The characters are half of what make the Wizarding World so fun, and the reboot provides an opportunity to explore those who had to be glossed over or outright excluded in the movies. In conclusion, reboots have their detractors, and for good reason. The entertainment industry is saturated in them right now, and the majority of prequels, spin-offs, and remakes have been lousy. Even the Wizarding World failed to impress critics when it came to the Fantastic Beasts films. However, TV shows tend to do better than films. It may be that television simply has more room to develop its plots and characters, but the Star Wars franchise managed to produce some quality shows when its numerous films bombed. Not all of the shows were a success, but many have become fan favorites. A foray into the TV world might be just what the Wizarding World needs. Any TV show might be terrible too, especially when one considers how HBO ended Game of Thrones. But it helps that the writers would have the last 2 books to draw from in penning their finale. House of Dragons is succeeding so far, even more so than Rings of Power did, and HBO isn't afraid to explore the grittier sides of its franchises. Harry Potter has some darker moments, and HBO doesn't seem like the type of studio to shy away from them. The films will always be close to my heart, regardless of what happens with the show. If the TV adaptation is terrible, nothing can take the movies or their nostalgia away from us. It's hard to imagine someone other than Daniel Radcliffe as Harry, and hiring an actor who isn't Alan Rickman to play Snape almost feels like sacrilege, but with care, the proposed reboot could be exactly what diehard fans of the books need. For those of us anxious to see those scenes and characters axed from the movies brought to life, a well-written reboot could finally realize our dreams. I, for one, would be thrilled to see everything from blast-ended Scroots to a young Tom Riddle made a reality on screen. And the original films will always be there for us to binge, regardless of what happens. Are you excited for a reboot, or do you consider it unnecessary? What scenes from the books would you like to see in the show? Is there anyone you'd love to see cast as a particular character? Sound off in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and happy reading.